set the captives free. Leave us abandoned to your praise. Lord, let your glory fall. Lord, let your glory fall. Consuming fire, fan into flame. A passion for your name. Spirit of God, fall in this place. Lord, have your way. Lord, have your way. Consuming fire, fan into flame. A passion for your name. Spirit of God, fall in this place. Lord, have your way. Lord, have your way with us.
Idolatry. So let's do a quick review of everything we talked about. So last week we talked about the war against the Philistines and the Israelites. Okay. I think you were. Yeah, you were here. Yeah, you were here.
No.
So we found out the Israel army lost the war against the Philistines. They lost about 30,000 people. Do you guys remember why 30,000 people were killed? Because of sin, okay. What else? It had to do with the Ark of God. Someone raise your hand and answer.
Oh,
Noah.
because they believe that the Ark of God would help them instead of actual God.
Yes, good. Okay. Do you guys remember what we called that? Started with an S?
Sin.
No.
Sacrifice.
No. Superstitious. Okay. So the Israelite people thought that the Ark of God would help them win the war. But it wasn't the physical object of the Ark of God, it was God himself, right? Just because they had the Ark didn't mean that they were going to win this war. The way they were going to win this war was by who? With God. Good. So if you guys can recall, the Israelites thought that just by having the Ark of God that they were going to win the war against the Philistines. But that wasn't the case. Israel lost the war because they trusted an object rather than God himself. And like I said, 30,000 people died. That's a lot of people because of one simple mistake. So after winning the war, the Philistines took the Ark of God as a trophy for winning the war against the Israelites. So here we come to our text. This is the verse on your guys' page of chapter 5 of 1 Samuel. So let's read it one more time. I'm going to go read it. Just follow along as I read. And the Philistines took the Ark of God and brought it from Ebenezer unto Ashdod. And when the Philistines took the Ark of God, they brought it into the house of Dagon and set it by Dagon. We're going to talk about who Dagon is and what Dagon was, what kind of idol he was. In verse 3. And when they of Ashdod arose early on the morrow, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the earth before the ark of the Lord. And he took Dagon and set him in his place again. And when they arose early on the morrow morning, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the ground before the ark of the Lord. And the head of Dagon and both the palms of his hands were cut off upon the threshold. And only the stump of Dagon was left to him. Therefore neither the priests of Dagon nor any that came into Dagon's house tread on the threshold of Dagon in Ashdod unto this day. But the hand of the Lord was heavy upon them of Ashdod. He destroyed them and smote them with emerods, even Ashdod and the coast thereof. And the men of Ashdod saw that it was so. They said, the ark of God of Israel shall not abide with us, for his hand is sore upon us, and upon Dagon our God. They sent therefore and gathered all the lords of the Philistines unto them and said, what shall we do with the ark of the God of Israel? And they answered, let the ark of the God of Israel be carried about unto Gath. And they carried the ark of God of Israel about thither. In verse 9. And it was so that after they had carried it about, the hand of the Lord was against the city with a very great destruction. And he smote the men of the city, both small and great, and they had emerods in their secret parts. Therefore they sent the ark of God to Ekron, and it came to pass, as the ark of God came to Ekron, that the Ekronites cried out, saying, they have brought about the ark of God of Israel to us, to slay us and our people. So they sent and gathered together all the lords of the Philistines, and said, send away the ark of God of Israel, and let it go again into his own place, that it slay us not, and our people. For there was a deadly destruction throughout all the city, and the hand of God was very heavy there. And the men that died there were not smitten with emerods, and the cry of the city went up to heaven. Let's go in prayer real quick. Let's bow our heads. Dearly Father, we just thank you for this day. Just thank you for a continuation of our two-part series on idolatry. Just help us to understand what the meaning of idolatry is, and if we have any idols in our hearts, just help them to pull them out and to just put them before you and just to get rid of them. I just pray that we would understand the lesson here that the Israelites went through and that we could apply this truth to our lives. Once again, I just pray that you would put me aside to speak through me, and just help this message to really touch our hearts and just help us to really understand what you're trying to say to us. We just thank you for this day and be with the rest of the message and the rest of the day. Just keep us safe. We thank you for everything and we love you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. So here we see the Ark of God taken by the Philistine army. And they took the Ark of God because they had just conquered the Israelites. They had just killed 30,000 people. So it was kind of like a reward for, destroying the God of the Israelites. And the Philistines, what they do is with this Ark of God, they place it within their own temple. And within that own temple, they have their own God. And that God's name is Dagon. So the word dag in Hebrew means fish. So this means it's what? Fish god. So it's a half man, half fish. And the reason why the Philistines had this type of idol is because they were master fishers, masters of the sea. They knew ocean life. They knew how to fish. They knew how to catch things in the sea. They ran with ships and boats and all that. So they understand that they understood the ocean was very important to them. So it would make sense why people like that would have a fish god, right? Does that make sense? A lot of idols back in the day, they were part animal, part human most of the time. And if you think about like Egypt, I think there was like Anubis, the dog that was like half dog, half human. Or they had like some idols that were half bird, half man, stuff like that. And all these idols were both half human and half animal. And like I said, Dagon was a fish god. And he represented a half man, half fish. And because of this, I guess you can think of him as like a mermaid, or like a merman in that sense. And they thought that this idol was the reason why they were doing so well with sea life, with ocean life. They're saying this is the reason why we could catch so many fish. Well, why we could consume this much, money and power and strength and wealth because of our idol. So what the Philistine army did is after they had defeated the 30,000 soldiers of Israel, they took the Ark of God knowing that this was the thing that the Israelites really cared for. They thought this was the most important thing, and they took that Ark and put it within their temple. Do you think that was a good idea? Knowing who the God of Israel is? So here were these Philistines, thinking they just won the war, thinking that they just, killed off the God of Israel, thinking they had, defeated God's holy people. They were obviously happy. They were obviously very confident because they had just won the war against, Israel, who had, beat Egypt and pulled them out of Canaan and taken them to the promised land. And all these things that they heard about, they had just defeated this army. So you can imagine, the power that they felt, the strength that they felt. Understanding we had just defeated the God of Israel. We had just defeated his people. We had just defeated, the apple of God's eye. And when we look in 1 Samuel chapter 5, like I said, we know the Philistines are very happy. They're still very confident. And what's the reason? Because they killed God's people. They destroyed the God of Israel in their thinking. And everything in the mindset of the Philistines seemed to be complete. Everything seemed to be going the way that they planned out. And they thought that, everything was okay. But this was only the beginning. If you read the Bible on a day-to-day basis, you soon realize that God tends to glorify himself. What that means is God uses us as Christians, as believers, for his glory. As a believer, hopefully, Noah or my dad or myself even, we're supposed to be vessels to show, hey, this is what Christianity is. This is what a Christian is supposed to be like. We're supposed to give glory to not myself, but to who? God, right? Just like if you guys are, kids, obviously, and you have parents, you guys are supposed to bring honor to who? Your parents, right? Your mom and dad. And the way you do that is by living correctly, by saying the right things, by making sure we don't do, the wrong things or make mistakes in that sense. And the same thing with Christianity too. As a believer in him, we're supposed to have a testimony for who? God, right? For Jesus, for the Holy Spirit. Everything that we do here in church, everything that we do in our school or our work or our education place, people are watching us, especially if they know that you're a believer, especially that they know if you're a Christian. This is why it's so important to, when you're in school, when you're in the public place, when you're in the private place, that we have a Christianity that's not just here on Sundays or Wednesdays or when we have Bible studies. It's every single day. It's 24/7, right? It's on a day-to-day basis. We have to live based off change. And I remember someone asking me one time after a sermon saying, why do we need to glorify God? Can't God just use himself to glorify himself. He has all this power, he has all this strength. Why does he give us, or why does he let, Christians glorify him through these people? Because obviously people can make mistakes. People have always done, terrible things over the years. What I was telling him is, as Christians, we have an opportunity, not that God needs us, nor that, he doesn't need us to help him. He doesn't need us to make his will go forth. As Christians, we have an opportunity to be a part of his will. Does that make sense? We have an opportunity to be a part of God's plan. To be honest, God being powerful, he can, wipe out a whole nation with, just a snap of his fingers. But in reality, God really doesn't need us. But as Christians, as a payment of hey, thank you for, paying for my sins. Thank you for dying on the cross. This is the way that we can pay back to God. This is the way that we can pay back to Jesus and to the Holy Spirit. It's by living a Christian life. It's by being a Christian, by being a testimony to him. And this is why, as a Christian, we're given an opportunity to glorify him. Even though God doesn't need us. Even though God doesn't really need us for his power. We understand who he is. We understand the power that he has, the strength that he has, the might that he has. But as Christians, this is why we're given an opportunity to glorify God through our own life. Through my own life. Through your life. As a believer in him. So as we read in 1 Samuel chapter 5, verses 2 to 4, it says, when the Philistines took the ark of God, they brought it into the house of Dagon and set it by Dagon. And when the people of Ashdod, this is talking about the Philistine people, Ashdod was the city that the Philistine people lived in. It says, they arose early on the morrow, and behold, Dagon was fallen to his face to the earth before the ark of the Lord. And he took Dagon and set him in his place again. And they arose early on the morrow morning. Behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the ground before the ark of the Lord. And the head of Dagon and both the palms of his hands were cut off from the threshold. And only the stump of Dagon was left to him. So this is where the story gets kind of weird, kind of interesting. Here we see the God of Israel humiliating the Philistine people because of their false idol. Here are these Philistine people that took the ark of God, they placed it in their temple right in front of their God, their idol, their Dagon. And they leave it there, they go, go to sleep and have dinner and stuff like that. And they come back the next morning and they see their idol falling over, on top of the ark basically. As if it was bowing down to it. So they're like, okay, this is kind of weird, why would this happen? So they obviously thought it was just a mistake. Maybe some wind blew through the temple and knocked over the statue. And they just went about their day again. So the next day they come back again to, worship their God, to worship their idol and stuff like that. But once again they see their idol falling over again after they just put it back up. But this time, the head of the idol was cut off, the hands were cut off, the legs were cut off, and it was just all in front of the Ark of the Covenant. And they were like, okay, this is really weird. What's going on? So this is the part that we're at. So the very next day, imagine their faces as they see their God, their fish God, the one that, brought them all this prosperity, brought them all this health, brought them all this wealth. But he was falling over in front of the Ark of God, as if it were bowing to him. As if it were bowing to the God of Israel. But this time, it wasn't just falling over, it was cut into pieces. And it makes me think, when God knows that we have an idol in our life, or anything that we struggle with, whether it be sin, or temptation, or anger, or pride, God will not just take that idol away, he'll destroy that idol away. He'll get rid of that idol. And this means anything that we struggle with, let's say with anger, or with language, or maybe bad music, or bad videos that we watch. If we give God the opportunity to, hey, I really want to get rid of this. I really want to change my life. I really want to stop doing this thing. Don't you think a loving Father would take that away from you, right? He would take away that sin. He'll take away that temptation. He'll take away that desire. Like I said, no one here in this room is perfect. We all struggle with the sin. But the difference is, as a Christian, we have an opportunity for God to get rid of our idol, to get rid of our sin, to get rid of our temptation. I mentioned before in high school, when I was in junior high, one of the biggest things that I struggled with was my mouth. I always used to lie, I always used to curse, I used to cuss, and I used to have the worst mouth you could ever think of. But I haven't said, words like that in maybe 6-7 years. And if you give God the chance to say, hey, I really want to change. Hey, I really want to, be better to my parents. Hey, I really want to stop lying. Hey, I really want to find better friends. I really want to stop cursing, or lying, or gossiping, or even stealing. God will give you the opportunity to break away from that. But the thing is, we have to give him the chance to be a part of our life. Not just by prayer, not just by, reading the Bible, but by living what we learn in here and applying it to myself as a Christian. Does it make sense? So instead of, thinking about how many problems that I have, or like I struggle with anger, or cursing, or being violent in that sense, or gossiping, or lying. We can tell the problems that we have a bigger God than that. We're not worried about any situation that we go through, because it makes me think of, Jesus Christ. He didn't die just for the murderers and, the robbers and stuff like that. He died for the little things as well. He died for small sins, big sins, medium-sized sins. Because in God's eyes, every type of sin, whether it be small, maybe it's something as lying, or maybe it's something as big as killing or robbing somebody. Any type of sin in God's eyes is sin, right? It doesn't matter if you have a small sin or a big sin. Compared to a holy God who's perfect in being and in mind and in thought, someone that's pure, someone that, has no sin. Any type of sin to him is sin. You know what I mean? He's perfect. This is why it's important to understand that God died for my sins. He died for your sins. He died for small sins. He died for big sins. There is no sin that God didn't die for. There is no sin that Jesus Christ didn't go on the cross and, be crucified to die for me. Any type of sin that we struggle with, I can guarantee you, Jesus can wash it away. Does that make sense? Like I said, whether it be with lying or cursing or being angry, or even the bigger sins like robbing, or I said even murder in that sense. All these things God can wash away. All these things God can promise. I remember Bible College show, I mentioned this before too, but I have friends that used to be gangsters. They used to do terrible things. They used to rob, they used to do all this sort of stuff, drugs and stuff like that. And now they're missionaries in like Germany. Now they're missionaries in like North Korea, and they're giving their life for something to what the world thinks is simple. Where Christianity is a joke to them. But in reality, why would people die for something if they didn't believe it? You know what I mean? If God can really change someone like that, this is why it's important to understand why we have to keep our testimony. Why we have to make sure that we're pure inside. Because we're not just representing ourselves, we're representing who? God. Like I said, our parents. Like I said, our church. A lot of people are looking at us whether we think about it or not, whether we like it or not. So once again, let's go back to where we were. So here we have the God of Israel humiliating Dagon the fish god. Here were these Philistine people, shocked upon seeing the fact that, their God was destroyed. That it was cut into pieces. That it was just, made to nothing. And it seemed like, Israel army and their God destroyed the God of Dagon, this idol, this fish god. And the God of Israel, who we serve as Christians, made this fish god statue bow to the ark of God. But not just bowing, but broken into pieces, completely destroyed. God had completely took the God of the Philistines and destroyed it and made it nothing. And like I said before, if we really have something that we struggle with in our life, anything that we put before God, it could be work, it could be family, it could be friends, it could be school, it could be games, it could be money. Anything that we have in priority before God, maybe what's the first thing that we look at when we wake up in the morning? Probably our phones, right? We probably don't open a Bible. We probably don't do, things that we're supposed to do. I remember asking my teens at my old church too, what is the first thing that you do when you wake up? I think like 80% of them said look at their phone, check their texts, look at social media, stuff like that. Yeah, and I asked, what if instead of, taking the time to open our phones and to check our Instagram feed or to look at our Facebook status or to see what friends have been and text us, what if we took, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes just to read, just to open? I mean, God gives you 24 hours a day. We could at least give him 5 to 10 minutes of one day. Does that make sense? In Bible college too, I remember every time that I didn't read the Bible in the morning, every time I didn't have a prayer time with him, every time I didn't have a quiet time or a devotion time with him, usually my day didn't go well. Usually I didn't have a very good day. But every time I took time to give God time to talk to him, to pray to him, to read about him, to understand what he wants to say to me, I remember every day being a good day. Things going right, God blessing me in ways that I could possibly imagine. Maybe, struggling with finances, maybe things that I struggle with. God will always make a day better as long as you have that relationship with him. I mentioned before too, if you talk to your mom maybe once a week or your dad once a week, every time you just needed something, that's probably not a good relationship to have, right? You need to talk to your parents on a day-to-day basis. And it's the same thing of God. If you want that relationship, we have to communicate. We have to talk. We have to pray. We have to listen. That's why God is there. And I think the biggest thing is for especially teens is we know who God is. We know the power that he has. But we don't talk to him. We don't use it. We have that opportunity, but we don't take a hold of it. If you think about what prayer is, you're directly talking to God. You're talking directly to the one that died, that sent his son to die for you. He's the one that's going to help you. He's the one that's going to take care of you. He's the one that's going to love you. He's the one that's going to protect you. Like I said, when you're in the worst part of your life, one day hopefully you don't get there. But when you get to that point in your life, the one person that's always going to be there, like I said, even before your parents, even before your friends, even before people that love you, is going to be God. He's going to be the person that's always going to be beside you, no matter what the situation is. Why? Because I've seen, friends and family that didn't have parents, that lost their parents, or didn't have friends, and they come around to the fact where they come to the point in their life where, the one that's always going to be there was God. When they've hit rock bottom, when they've, done the worst they could, they're trying to change their life around. The one person that can guarantee that always going to be there is going to be Him. People are going to fail us. People in this world we're always going to find something better. We're always going to find someone better. We have to make sure that God is the one person that's going to take care of us. God's the one person that's going to bring us out of our sin, out of our temptation, out of the things that we struggle with, and He's the one that's going to watch over us and be with us in that area. And so here we see a God of second chances. This was the God of Israel giving the Philistine army, despite what Israel had done, a second chance to turn around. Obviously, upon seeing their idol being destroyed and completely wiped out, they're probably thinking, maybe the God of Israel is true. Maybe there's something bigger than our God. Maybe there's something stronger than our God. But the thing is, with that, you can imagine the Philistine army, they go to the temple every single day, they probably pray to this fish god, they probably make sacrifices to it every single day, and they're used to this. They probably did this for 50 to hundreds of years. But with changing, with believing to a different thing, comes with what? Change. And a change of lifestyle, and a change of wanting to do something different. And I've known today, like today's society, especially with teenagers or young adults, a lot of people don't like change. A lot of people want other people to change, but they don't want to change. I remember when Donald Trump became president, a lot of people were like, oh, I wish I could change the president, or I wish I could change the person who's running this country. But the thing is, we can't force other people to change. We ourselves have to change in order for everyone else around us to change. Instead of saying, hey, I wish I could probably listen better if someone was not being distracted, or maybe I could be a better Christian if my mom wasn't always like that. Or maybe I read the Bible if she wasn't forcing me to read the Bible every day. Maybe if we start changing ourselves first, God will change the people around us first. Do you guys know what revival means? Revival? R-E-V-I-V-A-L? Is that
like a change?
like a change? Good. A change in what? like a whole nation or a group of people or a group of Christians. It's one person saying, hey, I want to change. I want to make this church different. I want to make our family different. I want to make our lives different. And one person having that change sparks the fire for the people around them to see that. This is how, big companies like Apple come to be, because one person has a great idea, and he gives that idea to his people around us, to his friends, to his family, and he makes that idea grow and fester and get stronger and bigger and more wealthy in that sense. And now we have this huge company that everybody knows about. And that's the same thing with Christianity too. If we have this truth, we share it to people that we love. We're serious about this. We're serious about our faith. We make, a church like this grow. We make small churches that start off with 1 to 2 members become members of, tens of thousands of churches, or people in that sense. And it's important to understand the importance of that. It's important to understand what we have as a Christian, as an opportunity to be a Christian in that sense. And like I said, the Philistine people, they were unwilling to make these changes. They were already comfortable serving this idol. They've served this idol for 50 to 100 years. And the fact that God was saying, I'm giving you a second chance to believe in me, to trust in me, that's not an easy thing to do. You can't take someone that's been a Buddhist for 20, 30, 40 years and just all of a sudden change them to become a Christian. You can't take someone that's believed in Muhammad or Hinduism and just preach them one day and all of a sudden he just becomes a full-fledged Christian, you know what I mean? It takes time, it takes change, it's a big change in your life. I mean, I think of people that in my life that maybe struggle with smoking or that had like a drinking problem or they had an addiction. It doesn't just change in one day. It takes time, but if you're serious about that change, if you really want God to fix your life, He can really do that. And of course, we're not smoking or drinking, hopefully. Seriously, I've had, we'll talk about that another day. But there are things that we struggle with, maybe with lying, or maybe with cursing, or maybe with listening to terrible music. I've heard that here at the church specifically. Or just saying the wrong thing, or doing the wrong thing, or maybe hitting our brother, or hitting our sister, or just being a bad person that we're not supposed to be. Simple things like that, we can really change. Like with lying and cursing and just being angry or just being bitter all the time, having something in our hearts all the time. We can fix that as long as we ask who? God. Like I said, God's the Father that wants to change you. God's the one that wants to see you have a better future, not just physically, but spiritually. So let's look at the closing verses in 1 Samuel chapter 5, verse 8 to 12. And then we'll be finished. It says, "They sent therefore and gathered all the lords of the Philistines unto them, and said, What shall we do with the ark of God of Israel? And they answered, Let the ark of God of Israel be carried about Gath. And they carried the ark of God of Israel about thither. And it was so that after they had carried about, the hand of the Lord was against the city with a very great destruction. And he smote the men of the city, both small and great, and they had emerods in their secret parts. Therefore he sent the ark of God to Ekron, and it came to pass as the ark of God came to Ekron, that the Ekronites cried out, saying, They have brought the ark of God of Israel to us to slay us and our people. So they sent and gathered together all the lords of the Philistines, and said, Send away the ark of the God of Israel, and let it go again to his own place, that it slay us not. For there was a deadly destruction throughout all the city, and the hand of God was very heavy there. And the men that died not were smitten with emerods, and the cry of the city went up to heaven." So unfortunately, the Philistines didn't learn from their mistakes, so what they did is they decided to take the ark of God and give it to another city. And obviously when they did that, terrible things happened in that city. So that city was like, freaking out, getting worried, like, what is going on? Why do we have this thing? So then they give it to another city. And the same thing happens there. God just wreaks havoc in there. And there's like plagues and swords and, people dying and like terrible things that happen like that. So they're trying to get rid of this ark of God. And finally someone says, why don't we just give this back to Israel? Why don't we just give this back to the ones that we destroyed? And it's funny to think that, we're given an opportunity, if we're given an opportunity to trust in God, to have a second chance, why don't we take that chance? Why don't we take the chance of, hey, knowing the life that we live is bad, knowing the things that we do is bad, knowing that we're not getting anywhere spiritually, we need to get rid of things that are bad. We need to get rid of the idol in our life. We need to get rid of things that are hurting us. And the way we do that is getting rid of sin, is getting rid of temptations, getting rid of things like that. Like I said, we have a God that can solve every problem in our life. He can solve every addiction in our life. He can break any chain in our life. He can mend any relationship in our life. He can fix any problem in our life. But as a Christian, we hope not to forget who and how powerful God is. Like I said, we all know this, but we really got to apply it to ourselves. So let's think about what we talked about today. Maybe you or me or us as a church group have an idol in our life that God finally needs to put down. Maybe we're struggling with believing in God, even though we know how powerful God is. Despite the evidence that's in creation and having a conscience and having a soul in that sense, making decisions that's right or wrong, all these things are proof that God is here. Besides creation, just by, seeing your sibling, just by seeing your brother, seeing your sister, seeing your parent. You think two big rocks collided and created all this? I don't think so. There's so much proof behind creation. We have to understand that if we have an opportunity to believe in Christianity, to trust in a God like that, we should. If that makes sense. God is calling us to remove any type of idol that we have in our life, anything that we keep in front of Him. And He wants our full attention. He wants our undivided attention. He wants all of us, all of our heart, all of our mind, all of our eyes, all of our ears, and to give us to Him. So maybe you're thinking, I don't think I have any idols in my life. Or what is determined to be an idol? Maybe it's friends. Maybe it's a temptation. Maybe it's a sin. Maybe it's a certain sin that we keep going to every single day. Maybe it's anger. Maybe it's lying. Maybe it's looking at bad things. Maybe it's money. Maybe it's popularity. Maybe it's pleasure. Maybe it's self. Remember, God is the only one that can fix that in your life. But the thing is, we have to give that to Him. We have to give up to Him. You guys know what an altar is, right? Back in the day? Yeah. Where they would sacrifice, let's say, a live animal or give something to God. They said, here, God, this is what I want to give to you. And the same thing with our idols. Those are the things that we give to Him. Those are the things that He takes away, and He burns, and He gets rid of. So as a Christian, if we have idols in our life, if there are things that we struggle with, we need to lay them at the cross for Him. We need to bring them to the altar. We need to, in a sense, destroy them so they don't come back. So they don't, come back to life and we're still struggling with that same sin. As a Christian, we're not supposed to, be struggling with the same sin over and over and over again. That's not a good testimony to have. It's not a good thing to be represented by, and that's something that we all should know, and that we all should focus on today. Let's go ahead and hear. I want to pray, and then we'll do offering, and I'll make one more announcement, and then we'll be dismissed. Let's bow our heads. Dearly Father, we just thank you for this day. Just thank you for just giving me another opportunity just to preach, just to share your word, to share your truth. I just know I did take a lot of time, and I just pray that they would understand what was talked about today, that they would really think about it throughout the week, and just apply it to their lives. And I just pray that these truths that we learned today in 1 Samuel chapter 5 about idolatry and about these sins and these things that we put before you, just pray that we would take those out and just break them and just put them in the altar sacrifice for you, God. Just pray that we would get rid of the idols in our life, just so that we can become a better Christian, become a better son or daughter, become a better parent, become a better friend or a family member, and just honor and glorify you. I just pray that we become good Christians. Just help us to grow this week, just to keep us safe, and just to watch over us. We just thank you for everything. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. So let's be seated.
Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, your perfect love is casting out fear. And even when I'm caught in the middle of the storms of this life, I won't turn back, I know you are near. And I will fear no evil, for my God is with me. And if my God is with me, whom then shall I fear? Whom then shall I fear? Oh no, you never let go, through the calm and through the storm. Oh no, you never let go, every high and every low. Oh no, you never let go, Lord, you never let go of me. I can see a light that is coming for the heart that holds on, a glorious light beyond all compare. There will be an end to these troubles, but until that day comes, we'll live to know